self-love is was and always will be my primary goal. That was my primary goal. It was understanding that there is no one or no thing or no accomplishment that will ever provide for me the feelings that I can provide for me. There is no one that will ever understand me as well as I can understand me. It's just not possible. We have to be our own biggest fan, friend, family member, support system, source of love.
Conor Millstein is a movement education specialist with over 15 years of experience in movement and athletic performance training. Conor has created the Inside Out Movement Manual, a training method that focuses on understanding principles of nature, movement, and energy, which, when replicated by the human body, allow the user to minimize friction, aka wear and tear on the body, while gaining strength, mobility, and power. Inside Out Movement was founded in 2020 at the height of the pandemic as an online movement education community. ISO stands for Inside Out. We believe that permanent sustainable change can only come from within. Our goal is not only to provide you with a world-class workout program, but also educate you on the principles of sustainable movement so that you can keep grooving for longer. At the same time, you will understand the framework through which you can apply the principles to all areas of life. The Inside Out Movement program is built in a 3-layer system. Each layer is needed to perform optimal and sustainable movement. And I can truly attest to that. I can't wait for you to listen to this conversation with Conor and myself. I hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to the Pelvic Pulse podcast. I'm so lucky. I'm feeling very lucky right now to be able to sit with you, Mr. Conor. Let's see where to begin. I'll probably end up reading your bio beforehand, by the way, so everyone kind of knows who we're sitting with. But I guess I want to just start off by saying thank you for all the work that you do and put out into the world. I've shared on my Instagram before how much I appreciate not just what you show through your movement, but actually how you write and how you talk about it. And I know that's always ever evolving. So yeah, what you've done so far is quite incredible and quite broad. I I really don't want to necessarily get into like the history pieces of you because like very purposefully because there are other amazing podcasts that have done that, and that's actually something that I did when I first was introduced to, like, not introduced to your work, but I was like really invested in getting into it for myself. I listened to all these other podcasts, which I might just link below in the show notes for anyone curious about your past and where you've, I guess, like taken root and have grown from. I just really want to dive into, I guess, some of the more juicy stuff.
Yep, absolutely. I would, yeah, exactly. That's why all those podcasts, they live right on my website, so I don't have to keep going through the background over and over.
Yeah.
It's I understand why the question, when you see someone doing what I'm doing and talking about things like I am, it's a very natural thing to be like, where is this coming from? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
So yes, I would love to get into the juice of it. It's a lot more fun for me.
Yeah. So I'll just get really honest with everyone. I mean, it's been a really wild journey, I'd say the past 2 years in what I have thought of as preparing my body, preparing my mentality, preparing my business even for motherhood. And birth has always been a thing that I work with personally or professionally. And I love it. I love it so much. And I know how much can go into it from like an intellectual perspective and, in a feeling way too. But I've never experienced it obviously in myself. And to me, my perspective of birth is that it is one of the most physically challenging experiences potentially for someone. I'm so curious how you view birth because that was one of the first things that I shared with you. I was like, I really have a goal of not only being able to run like a 10K, no problem, under an hour or to do a pull up, but I really want to have a home birth if I can.
Yeah, totally. That nothing got me more fired. That still lives in my head rent free. because I get very excited. That is a higher level goal than most people think, right? So first, um, without saying it directly, I am also focused on reproduction. Basically, I'm also focused on reproduction. Ultimately, a human being, biologically, what are we really here for? We're here for two things. We're effectively moving away from danger towards food, towards reproduction. That's what we do as an organism. We are making the decisions on a subconscious and conscious level towards those things, whether we like it or not. So getting really complete and concrete with that is invaluable. Whether or not you literally have a home birth, having that as a goal, having that as something to press towards is so, so important, because what you're saying is that you are completely self-sufficient and capable of doing what your biology is made to do on your own. And that is a humongous form of mastery over your biology, which is ultimately all I'm after. So inherently, my work becomes about, for a female organism especially, becomes about reproduction, whether we like it or not. And the ability to do that, to have a home birth, to be sufficient in reproduction on your own is amazing. I love that goal.
Yeah. And who knows if it'll even like happen. This is something new that I haven't really shared about on any recent recordings at all, but recently, I'd say in the past month, I've even had this moment of complete surrender to the fact that what if I don't even get pregnant? Like what if that doesn't happen the way I want it to happen? And something I'll say about your work that it's how do I even say it? Like I'm even having so much trouble like articulating how powerful it is sometimes because through the lens of the body, we are facing some darker or maybe even some shadow sides. I don't love like light and dark, like shadow, whatever light stuff necessarily all the time to speak through that lens, but we're confronting a lot of our shit when we do your work. And through that lens of the body, we are taking new shapes, taking new form, taking our bodies to the limit in a way that people probably can't conceptualize quite yet, but that's okay. Because I feel like if they watch you move, they can kind of see maybe.
I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they can. I did. But yeah, I've had this like moment of just surrender to maybe that won't happen the way I think it'll happen. And something that you actually mentioned on a call that we had this morning was to essentially like fail fast and fail often. Can you elaborate on that a little bit from that perspective
Yeah,
of trying to, I guess,
let's let's start with my favorite thing to do, which is coach you directly.
cool.
The it, in order to be as complete as possible towards that goal, it doesn't mean holding on to it for dear life. It's understanding the possibility that it might not happen, period.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like I said right off the bat, maybe it is home birth, maybe it's in a hospital, maybe it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen at all, is the other part of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And mastery of that goal is not holding on to that one for dear life. It's understanding that if you set the highest one and understand that adaptability is the key to accomplishing that goal, you're going to be prepared for every scenario.
Mm.
And it's not going to wreck you. It's just part of the process of obtaining that goal. That goal, whether you can get pregnant or cannot, will hold. That goal must hold. Don't ever lose that, no
Mm-hmm.
matter what the situation is. And um, part of that process of getting okay with the possibility of you failing is exactly that, because maybe that goal doesn't happen. That's what a hard goal, a good goal exposes, the high likelihood that it can't happen, right? And
Yeah.
the people at that point, people then back their goal down. they begin to get shy. And because what if, right? So they start picking goals with bigger bullseyes. And that's where I'm like, no, you don't want to go that way. You want to go this way. You want tougher goals, but you want to increase your capacity to adapt so that no matter whether you're successful with that goal or not, you have done everything you can within yourself to improve. And that is the real mission here. You are improving. Whether the outcome is actually what you wanted it to look like, which very unlikely that it does. The expectation versus the reality very often is perfect. Every once in a blue moon, sure, you get there, but more likely not. More like that is the more likely scenario. So to be prepared is to understand that the steps along the way to improve were always what you were trying to get out of that goal. And if you're just picking goals with huge bullseyes, you're not going to need very much improvement. You're not going to have to face the risk of what if this doesn't come to fruition.
Agreed.
So
It's kind of a protection mechanism in a way
it's very
for
much
name it what you want, your ego, or just that fear of failure, maybe in general, but fear of not
exactly
even getting what you want.
the identity that you're trying to uphold for yourself. It gets rocked in that direction, right? So we take this now to the body, not just in coaching Brittney's standpoint. We take this to the body. We can get used to that idea of failure previous to stepping into something that's really important to us. So what we were talking about today was within a push-up, a simple movement where you start to allow yourself to run the mechanism of a push-up. And if you do it the right way, you're going to get an honest answer. And the honest answer probably won't be the one you like. It probably won't be your favorite answer because it's real. And real things tend to suck up front, at least.
Agreed.
So you have to learn to fail and get good at it and understand what the response is and understand that, oh, wait, if I fail along the optimal mechanism, not only am I safe, not only am I okay, I actually got closer to my goal faster. So instead of hiding from failure, like we've all been taught, oh, if you can't do a push-up, this is weak, push through the failure, whatever the cliche is. Instead of that, I want the exact opposite. If you can fail and not cause too much negative damage to whether it's your physical body, your ego, your mental state, whatever it is, fail early, often, and as aggressively as you can through that optimal pathway.
Yeah.
It's going to get you to your goal faster. At the same time, going to improve your ability to adapt within the steps towards that goal.
Right.
So in the high likelihood that a hard goal doesn't happen, like an Olympic gold medal, a world championship, a home birth, these are hard ass things. And we need so much to align in order to obtain those goals. You can only control what you can control. So you have to get good at understanding what you can control. And once you understand that, you start to strengthen what you can control, condition what you can control. And now you've gained ownership over the situation and can let the things that you simply don't have the control over fall to the wayside and not feel so any type of way about it, really.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, for someone who maybe is so averse to failure, it's like, how do you even pick yourself back up and have that confidence to try again? But I think what you just said, where if you can take ownership of what you can control and let go of the things you can't, that I feel like does breed confidence, the kind of confidence that is like authentic and allows you to potentially reach this goal.
Exactly. You're going to pick up the traits that you need
Mm,
in order to accomplish whatever it is you want to accomplish. And that's the real key, is picking up all of those principles and character traits that are required, because those are the things that if we don't possess, we will definitely not reach what we're trying to reach. We'll
right.
find all sorts of self-defeating, self-deprecating, self-sabotaging mechanisms before we find the goal.
Totally. Totally. Okay. Switching gears just like a teensy bit. Something that I've been feeling in my body with doing the recalibrations, which that word right there has been, I told you, it's been coming at me from all these different places. Like it is wild how that word, I don't know if you've been noticing that it just feels so prevalent. Everyone I think is constantly recalibrating on different levels, but that word specifically for me just makes me feel like, okay, I am on the right path because when I do a recalibration, which doesn't have to take long, um, it's been looking different every single time I sit with your workouts. And like, for example, yesterday I did, it was probably like 15, 20 minutes maybe. And I then did a run for about 4 minutes and which was like half a mile. Pretty good in my opinion.
Mhm.
Like I ran so well. And something that I was like just taking in, being in a gym environment is so interesting because also I know from, okay, as a PT and a yoga instructor, just someone who's like learned a lot of alignment, but is now also relearning a lot of different things through your work. I'm looking around and like wondering how, number one, do these people have time to do everything that they're doing? And then why are they selecting what they're selecting to do, to focus on? Like, does it bring them joy or are they just doing it to check it off the list? And I mean, I definitely used to do that. I used to hit the cardio first, then I used to hit the weights and like do some more
Sure,
dynamic movement and then do some
sure.
dynamic stretching and hit the sauna and then leave. But that would take me like an hour and a half. I'm like, if I want to be a mom, there's no fucking way I'm gonna have that amount of time unless I'm like rolling in millions and can pay someone to watch my child while I work out for an hour and a half.
That is efficiency is extremely important. All right. So uh staying ready instead of having to get ready is a
Yes.
really valuable tool. All right. It's a really valuable tool. So in the beginning of the process, when there's a lot to learn, you happen to be able to do it really well. Your background is really well suited to jump right in and learn what I'm teaching, which is great. Not everyone's in that same boat. So you don't need to have an athletic background, an educational background, an experiential background in order to be successful. But it obviously, Brittney's put in a lot of time. That's going to speed up her learning process. That's great. That's how Brittney chose to spend her time. So what we want to do now is get to a new state that the where the body is ready to take on the stresses that we need to take on. And if we walk around in a inflammatory, compressive, inaccessible, imbalanced state, there's a lot of time previous to the body getting to a healthy one. And that time, we won't always have it. So oftentimes, especially if you're a driven person that already goes to the gym, you're a disciplined person, you're going to go do it anyway because you're driven and disciplined. And what you end up doing is sending yourself further into an ill prepared, unadaptable, imbalanced state. And then wondering why your knee hurts or your back hurts or your traps get sore when you run or whatever, why you're sitting in the physical therapist's office or for whatever that reason is. And in order to do the right thing for people, I teach them this how to calibrate themselves first. It's the first thing we learn. Because if we can get the body into an adaptable state, a decompressive, if we go a little more energetic focus, it's a high vibrational state where there's pressure and tension in the right areas so that you stay effectively hot, lubricated, um, and in balance, in homeostatic balance, equilibrium, then you're going to be adaptable. And we're going to be able to highlight the body's ability to heal itself. And if we are in a constant state of healing, then we can take on stress without the negative parts of wear and tear. So when you recalibrate yourself, you're bringing yourself into a state that is, one, more adaptable, two, more injury resilient, three, always prepared to take on the stress of whatever it is you need to take on. If it's a run, if it's a hard work day, if it's a conversation that you have to have with someone that you don't want to, it's so much easier to do it when the funnel you're doing it through is optimized for it. Mm-hmm. So there's the time component for myself. It was about, how do I fit in? Because I was doing, it gets to the point where you're like, okay, I'm in the gym for 2-3 hours. How am I going to get everything else done that I want to get done?
And it's like, are you even seeing results, like the results that you want?
And that's a whole nother,
right.
That's a whole nother conversation. Is it actually doing anything? Or is it just sending you further into future issues that you haven't even accounted for yet? All right. So, that is where we start, right? That is where we start. I have to start there with people. It's boring and it sucks and it's very in your face about where you are, because you're like, oh, but I could also just go outside and run. Like, yeah, you totally could.
Yeah.
Until you can't.
Correct.
Until you can no longer. And then there goes all the results from all the runs you did.
Correct. Exactly.
So
something you shared this with me, I think, in my assessment. And I just love this visual. And I think about it a lot too in terms of pleasure, but that's also another total like side note, right? If your capacity is, I'm like using my hands to kind of separate low and high, right? If say that's like just your inherent capacity, but you generally access a lot less than that, and you're like living within this smaller range. And like, yeah, it's like easy to get to whatever your end range quickly. The goal, I'd say, or the intention that I have with our work is to expand that capacity and like live in that greater range of equilibrium. Like you're saying, like you're already ready. Like you're primed. Like the calibrations are like a little bit of a primer, and then you're getting into your activity quickly, easily, efficiently. And then yeah, we can talk results. We can talk, I don't know. Like what are people's goals usually when they sign up? Are they similar to mine? Like I mean I want a nice butt.
Let me start with my own so that no one feels attacked or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend to be altruistic at any point.
You don't have to be. Yeah.
I want to be the most obvious choice for a breeding partner, period. I want to be just an obvious choice, right? So what are the things that are involved with that? Well, there's going to be the superficial look, right? Of course, I want to be superficially considered attractive, naturally, right? So I want, a high, tight sitting butt. I want a strong taper from my shoulders down to my waist. I want nice, clean toned structure, facial structure, shoulder structure, etc. And how I was going about getting that was everything that you had mentioned, right? I tried to do everything so that I could get everything until you run out of time, or you run into the ends of your ability, or whatever that is. So the goal has to eventually shift to become something. It's not necessarily about being altruistic, but it's about being as complete as you can without having to take more time to do it, right? So you become efficient with it. And in that efficiency, in that new equilibrium or that homeostatic range, you have the results that you're looking for superficially as well. It's just a harder way to get there because you're having to be more encompassing. So my goals now involve much more than just the superficial physique pieces, because I've already proven to myself, seen with my own eyes and felt with my own body and heard from other people that I can accomplish the superficial ones within those larger ones. And that's a hard thing to give up, because that's going to come right after your ego and your identity. And it's not an easy thing, so what do I usually get, right? Guys are, I don't want to lose my muscle. that I hear that all of the time. So like they're like, "Can I do your work and this?" I'm like, "Go crazy, buddy, go crazy," because over time you're going to start to see changes that you had never seen from the previous work that you were doing, and there will only have been one variable that shifted, this new thing, and then they try and make things exist in a balance for a little while. The new thing keeps creating more and more results until eventually everything that once lived, you're willing to let it go, and it moves out of its own way. And I never force people into that. I let them see it for themselves objectively. So yes, like for yourself, your high hanging goal of being able to go through a home birth includes a nice high tight sitting butt. It's just weird to think like that. It's
No,
different
totally.
to think like that.
I mean, you go backwards, right? What happens before birth? You're pregnant. What happens before pregnancy? You have sex. And like you're alluding to, it's like you want to look well. You just want to look healthy. And that can, I mean, to maybe just the eye from an evolutionary standpoint, mean that you are a good breeding partner.
Yeah, for sure. You know the mechanisms. You know the mechanisms that the eyes work through. It's there's subconscious decisions that are made immediately, right? And then the conscious comes in, and we start to be more surface level judgmental.
Hmm.
But it's the subconscious parts that I was really after, because I knew that if I could have, specifically in my situation, a female be like, "Oh, yes," the answer is yes within under a second,
Hmm.
then the rest is already decided. Basically, it's that's what I can handle. I can't control the lens through which someone else sees me, but I can absolutely control the biological components and make it an obvious decision that I like this person.
Right, right, totally. Okay. Let's talk maybe more like postpartum.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know actually something that surprised me again with your work when we talked initially was that you have and you work with many women, probably majority. Tell me if I'm wrong.
Oh yeah, majority women.
Yeah, and I'm assuming a lot of them are mothers. And are they finding you? Are they working with you in their postpartum, like early stages, or what is that looking like? And what's your perspective on? Well, I'll share mine first, I guess, a little bit. I know I just made a post about it, and I think you saw it maybe about what I would do in
Yes,
postpartum to heal and like return
yes.
to movement. And I just I think idealistically, I love the thought of like the fourth trimester, this like sacred kind of quarantined bubble that you create to bond with your baby and just get a hang of each other. Which I think a lot of people hear that and think, well, if I'm just doing that and caring for my baby, how am I supposed to get back into running? Oh, I'm going to go to my 6 week checkup once this little spaciousness is done, and they're going to tell me that I'm cleared for exercise
Exactly.
because I don't have an infection. They're also maybe going to put me back on birth control, or they're going to ask about it, and I may or may not want to go on it. And it's a really interesting thing to see where I mean, I've had the range of women who are like well and running at 13 weeks postpartum, a half marathon, and they're fine. At least they tell me that. And then I have women who are like, we're a year out now. And like, now we're getting into our groove with running, or
Mm.
now we're feeling more of ourselves and potentially even having our period come back. Like, yeah,
Wait,
I just want to jam on that a little bit.
yeah. So, um, first and foremost, the vibrational state, calibration state of a body going into the trauma. So, trauma of birth, trauma of an injury, trauma of a car accident, trauma of a race, trauma, whatever, right? That's what these things are. We don't like to associate these negative words with beautiful
Yeah.
experiences, but that's the truth of it. It's a stress to your body, right? It's
Yeah. If
it's a
we're going to
traumatic.
Yeah, yeah. I want you to elaborate on what you mean by trauma because I think people will
Yeah,
hear that and think totally negative. And that's
yeah,
something that there's a narrative with birth for sure, within the birth world, like birth isn't inherently traumatic, but it can be.
Right.
And so, but if
When we
we're
talk about trauma in a negative sense,
correct,
yes,
yes.
correct. It's a beautiful, exactly. It's probably the most magical thing that exists on this planet for a human organism.
Hmm.
Um, the reproductive process is, yeah, fucking
Incredible.
unbelievable. So trauma has gotten such a bad rap, branded as this negative thing for a couple of reasons. Number one, because we are so ill prepared to take it on. Number one. Number two, because this goes a little into like a socioeconomic warfare, but because it's brandable and easy to make money off of. Number three, we've been granted this unspoken about contract that we should never have to experience pain or trauma or bad things. We've been educated to, if you experience trauma, seek help. If you experience pain, seek help. If you experience bad things, seek some external solution. Right? So between those three things, trauma has just gotten turned into this, oh my God, I don't want that type of situation. All right. And um, if we can help redefine, right, if anyone's listening to this, if we can walk away with one thing, this would be a great one. If you can help redefine to yourself what trauma is, there's a huge step in the journey of building capacity against trauma. Trauma does not need to be bad. It is only bad if your existing framework doesn't allow you the capacity on how to sort it, handle it, and come away with growth from it. So we don't want to start calling everything that's traumatic negative. We want to understand that if you go to the gym, what are you doing? You are stressing your body. Why are you stressing your body? Because of the adaptations you want out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if I'm laying on the couch, right, you're not going to view that as a negative stressor. Well, that's not true. If I sat on the couch too much, what would happen? I would adapt to sitting on the couch too much.
Right.
I would get fat. My joints would get immobile. My tissues would get inflexible and dehydrated. And so all of a sudden, I start making worse and worse eating decisions. All of a sudden, I'm making worse and worse um, behavioral decisions within myself to be able to find that stressor more often. Oh, wait, now sitting on the couch is a stressor, right? What it was just chilling, just relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that we're doing is creating a stimulation response, a stimulus response. And the more dramatic, the more chaotic, the more intense the situation, the bigger the potential response. So when we talk about birth, that is an intense experience. So not only is it a trauma or a stressor, it's a really intense one, right? Versus sitting on the couch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the state that you are in going into that trauma is going to be the number one predicator of how well you come out of it in postpartum. And I did read every one of those slides, by the way. They were great. They were great.
Thanks.
Um, so when we talk postpartum, let's try and separate this idea of the timeline.
Mm.
Let's not worry about how long postpartum. What that's really showing you is the quality of your decisions leading up to the stressor that is your pregnancy and your birth.
Agreed.
And I'm not here to, knock anybody's decisions or yeah, I'm not trying to put anybody out here, but if you struggle through a trauma, it's because you didn't have any of those things that I mentioned before. The capacity, the framework, the understanding, the education, the reps going into it.
Sure.
That's why.
Sure. Yeah. I
Right.
mean, say we think about, I mean, this is so tangent, so tangent, but like, yeah, say we have a actual like negative trauma, like a traumatic experience, and you're a child, like you don't have that same kind of maybe nervous system capacity or physical capacity or emotional capacity that like maybe an adult would have to experience the same
Mhm.
thing, which is why those can be very, very different experiences, right? But I'm okay, I want to go back to um what you like you named a bunch of things and I'm like literally you could apply what you just shared about trauma and say it about stress. You could say it about pain, this relationship to pain that we also have. And if you, yeah, I want you to elaborate on it and just get in because I feel like the same thing. Like pain, if you, especially because I have a lot of chronic pain patients,
Mhm.
clients. I don't call them patients anymore, but they're my clients. And if they get trapped in that little loop of the pain cycle, and it ends up being such a pain psychology thing, but it's like a positive feedback loop, you know, or I guess a negative feedback loop. Um,
It, yes, I understand. I
yeah,
understand.
I feel like you're gonna pick up what I'm putting
That
down.
not many people are gonna. If anyone picks up on that, please put that in the comments somewhere because that's really funny. It's a science nerd funny thing right there.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so interesting. Like when we make meaning out of the pain, out of the trauma, out of the stress,
Mhm.
but it gets to be your choice what meaning you make of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you want me to tangent on specifically?
I guess the relationship to pain, like pain stories and maybe seeing pain as, yeah, like as not just a negative thing, but like I don't know, we talked about it in the
Yeah,
call this morning
in
and
the
I found
call
that
today.
really interesting.
Yes. So when we talk about any of these things, right? What's funny is we're always trying to get ourselves into this pain-free this thing that we imagine, right? This thing that we imagine is always feels good, always looks good, always on point, always sharp, always in shape, always everything perfect,
Perfect.
right? And we all envision this we have this expectation that exists. If we can just do this habit or this thing or buy that thing, we'll be perfect. And then our bubble gets burst in some way, shape, or form. So what I learned over the years is when we talk about pain, there's two directions that pain can be in, right? We're all trying to generally trying to improve ourselves generally. So when we do that, we are moving from our equilibrium. And as soon as we leave our equilibrium, no matter how big or small it is, we are going to experience a feeling. And that feeling is easily brandable as pain. Very easy to just say, this hurts, right? And what you're saying when you're saying that is something outside of equilibrium is happening. So first, there's just a general understanding. Then we have to start to talk about what I call corrective pain or injury pain. Those are two different things. Change, anything outside equilibrium will come with pain. That doesn't mean it's bad. If we try and control all of the time or keep ourselves in this little equilibrium, guess what? You're a living, breathing thing. That thing is shrinking. And if that equilibrium shrinks to a certain point, you're also going to find pain. And that one isn't a pretty one.
Yikes. Yeah.
That one, right? That's real trouble. I'll take an injury or injury pain over that any day because at least you are trying to push beyond your equilibrium, and that alone is not going to allow the equilibrium to shrink.
Right.
That's worst case scenario.
Right.
All right. So we have injury pain, we have corrective pain, two sides of the spectrum. If you want to call one side positive and one side negative, I don't really even care. It's just that's how equilibriums work. That's how we understand it in English. It's through a polar balance. So we have positive, we have negative. right? It doesn't mean bad and good. It just means outside of equilibrium on one side or the other,
Mm.
right? So once we understand equilibrium, outside of that is pain, then we understand, okay, we have corrective pain and we have injury pain. Now we can start putting together a body of work. We can start we have to allow time to take its toll, to play its part. So if we're experiencing pain in a certain movement pattern, but that experience is coming with increased tangible increase tangible changes towards your goals. So say you're finding more balance, more stability, less injury-based pain, less stress, less fear, less hesitation. Well, those are actually good things. So it's hard to convince me that that pain that you're feeling is a negative thing, is a bad thing. And if we can get really sharp at understanding all of those pieces and in a practice and then put it into practice, we're going to be experiencing corrective pain all the time. Mm-hmm. And then that equilibrium grows and swallows up that stressor. Now, what no one likes to talk about is it grows in both ways. You are going to have to see risk in order to change.
Can I bring in an analogy right here?
Please.
I feel like this is what I love about your work too, and how you write is like you bring everything into these different analogies. And I literally was watching a video this morning about this woman talking about from a business perspective, making 5K, whatever, 5K might be your normal, and say it's your goal, big goal, not home birth, but you want like 20K per month. Mm-hmm. And then you do all the things to change to get there. You feel that, let's call it like pain, but also just discomfort. Like it's new, it's not familiar, it's scary. Can you hold it? Can you keep it all? Are you going to be able to maintain it? And then what do people often do? They'll go and they'll shrink back away from the pain. Like what you were saying, like not shrinking in terms of like shrinking the bullseye. It's shrinking yourself, making the bullseye bigger, like what you were alluding to before. And I just find that reaction, such a human reaction, so fascinating.
So human.
But I know because you have a business background, like you actually, something that you talk about a lot or you say a lot is like, you want to invest, like you're talking about good investments. You're talking about profit. Like you're talking about what else? What other money words do you use?
Yeah, I ultimately what I did was went and got all of these different bits of education across such a wide array of things so that I could boil out what was actually universally present and what's actually going to allow us to be capable of what I desire in the world, which is self-sufficiency, self-awareness, and self-love, ultimately. Yeah. So understanding business is a huge part of that. Mm-hmm. There's this unfortunate, very tough conversation that I have all of the time with people that don't own their own time, where it comes out to be that an entrepreneurial direction allows you to prioritize yourself at a much higher degree. So while we're giving up our time for something that we truly don't align with or care about that much, it's very difficult to find the results that I'm looking for. And I don't like asking people to take on things that they might not choose for themselves. I don't love to do that. I probably could be a little harsher in those directions. But instead, I try and teach through all of those different lenses simultaneously by getting to that boiled down universal reality. So learning economics, literally how money works, which is how most decisions in your life are being made for you, whether you like it or not.
Mm.
Learning biology and chemistry, right? That's where we overlap. Physics, uh, how to manipulate the English language, right? Learning these things I try and teach as much of that as I can so that somebody not only has accomplished the physical results they want, but now they've built a toolbox to go ahead and manipulate their outside world to better be able to serve continued results that they've already proven to themselves. They've proven that it works, and now it's about tweaking these little components of life. And you realize, oh shit, Connor was actually preparing me for these future moments the whole time. What a cool dude. That was really nice. that
What a
was
cool
really
dude.
nice of him. So so I bring in as much of the scope that I can without convoluting things. And it's been a lot of years now, so it's gotten really sharp. And um, the learning just basic body economics is so valuable in understanding how a market works and how trends basically shift and how to be intelligent to be able to the only word that comes to mind is manipulate, but it's to be able to
Hmm.
control the outcome as best as possible,
Yeah.
so that it serves you and not something that doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah. For real. I'm so glad that you mentioned self-love because that's something that I've always loved about how you write about movement. And you've made many, many videos that have alluded to that, where you are just moving so effortlessly, so freely. It's not effortless, I know that, but like it looks that way probably now. That is your capability to
Yeah,
access that.
that which was a happy surprise, by the way. It is
Mm.
surprisingly effortless. Um, but the tears that it takes to get there, yeah, it's not effortless. that's not effortless.
Right.
Um, Self love is was and always will be my primary goal. That was my primary goal. It was understanding that um, there is no one or no thing or no accomplishment that will ever provide for me the feelings that I can provide for me. There is no one that will ever understand me as well as I can understand me. It's just not possible. We have to be our own biggest fan, friend, family member, support system, source of love. There's no choice. Every single other direction is not sustainable. Every single one.
Mm.
So the heart of what pun intended, the heart of what I'm teaching is about formulating a relationship with yourself that allows you to deprioritize the things that aren't you. And that's why it was just a happy outcome that I ended up moving well and looking good and making it look easy and effortless. Um, it's what you're seeing is not effortless movement. It's a body that isn't weighed down by things that frankly just don't matter to them. I'm not holding weight that I used to hold, both literally and figuratively. And that I just got this question today about how do I incorporate weight loss into this routine. That's a normal question I get in the
Mm.
beginning of people's phases. I'm like, what you're learning from someone that lost 100 pounds already the hard way is a way to not need that weight anymore, and it's not going to look like getting on the treadmill and running. We're creating an environment where the things that aren't necessary can't exist. And when we can do that, we get all of the results at once instead of having to take 18 hours to go do it.
It's so true. It's so true. I'm so glad you articulated it all that way. Yeah, I just love that. I feel like just, I guess, tying it back into um, pregnancy, postpartum, pelvic floor, I guess, in general, too, from that energetic standpoint, I mean, I feel like the physical body is always to me a map of what's going on the inside and or on the outside of someone's world. Like your body will show that, right? And if I want to get super specific again with that certain population, for example, any kind of leaking or prolapse, heaviness, diastasis, even low back, disc herniations, all of that. To me, that just means you're not managing something well, the pressure in general, the air, but also maybe the general pressure of your life or the weight of your responsibilities. How can you offset this? How can you let that go so that you can get back to a place that where you can manage it, or you get stronger where then you can take that back and hold on to it if you want to.
Yep, exactly correct. Pressure is exactly. It's fun when you start to see. There's a reason that the essentials boil down to three words: pressure, tension, orientation. There's a reason that they show up at every single level, inside and outside, top to bottom, no matter what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's yeah, there's only a couple words that end up being actually important, and the pregnancy conversation is a huge one because you have just there's so many different pressures. There's some of the most ridiculous things in the world, like the not wanting to be pregnant in public, not being comfortable with the size that you have to ultimately put on, not being comfortable with the repercussions of that size, like stretch marks, for example, like
Mm-hmm.
not being able to wear your favorite leggings, right? Like not there's these things that fuck with your identity ultimately. And because you're so stuck in that identity, you're now making your pregnancy harder than it had to be. And then the recovery is harder than it has to be. And then you start being like, oh, I hate pregnancy. And that's the worst case scenario.
Totally.
We never want that.
Yep. Yep. Couldn't agree more. I'd say, if anything, like part of the preparation in maybe even before pregnancy, you can do this in preconception. You can start to even like grieve these parts of you. Like enjoy your life as what we call a maiden, right? Enjoy it. Like really soak it in while you can, because that identity will shift when you are in pregnancy. That identity will shift once the baby's actually here. Like I mean, you're still that person, and there's so much other stuff, and you're literally forced into this growth, and it can be a really hard, challenging transition, or it can be life-giving, self-loving.
It can be within your equilibrium, so it doesn't shake you when it happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Brittney's going through. I promise you, even if Brittney's not pregnant right now, I promise you, she is going through these things, through the program that she's learning. There's going to be that there's sting. It's going to sting and burn a little bit deep in the belly when I bring up certain things, because you have to be willing and able to look at it honestly, and then decide if you want to shed it or not. And if it's continued work with me, the decision is going to be shed it,
Yeah.
and that burns at first.
Oh yeah.
That's a little shot to the gut at first, and you will get so accustomed to recognizing this within yourself that it doesn't sting so much to shed them. And by the time it comes to something so significant like pregnancy, you want to be very good at shedding those those little stings,
Yeah.
because you have no choice. And please, if you're thinking about getting pregnant and listening to this, do it beforehand. Do these things beforehand. Do these things beforehand. And this isn't to anyone that's thinking about getting surgery, anyone that's thinking about going into like a physical challenge, like what's popular, like high rocks, any physical trauma.
Yep. Yep.
Please take care of these things before you enter that trauma.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like even from the simple perspective of like this identity, I'm not a runner. And also, I know what my squat should look like. No, no, no. Shot, sting, let it go, move on. We're going to be better. It's going to be fine.
Exactly. Exactly. It's getting comfortable with not knowing and understanding how to navigate and be on your toes, be adaptable.
Right.
That's where the gold lies.
Yes. That's
It,
my word of the year is to be dynamic, right? Dynamism.
yes, where the that's right. You're saying
Yeah. So to be able to be adaptable is the goal
yes.
to survive, not or not just survive, but thrive.
Yeah. It's that's another one of those words that gets a really negative rap.
Mm,
That was rule number one as the human. It's
survive.
towards food, away from danger, aka survival.
Hmm.
Right, and after that, reproduction. That's
Hmm.
exactly what you're supposed to do. Survive at all, and then survive well. And most people skip right to the survive well part because it's pretty and glitzy and sounds good and doesn't hurt anyone's feelings.
Yep.
So they go right to that part and completely skip all of the basic foundational biological needs of survival that actually control the outcome of how you feel, your emotional states, mental states, physical states, so on and so forth.
It's a house of cards when you try to hack your way to that.
It's fragile. Exactly.
Yep.
Can't have fragile equilibriums. Do you work in your work? Are you mostly with um, postpartum women?
I'd actually say I'm pretty lucky. I am like 50-50.
50-50.
Yeah.
So,
Pregnancy, postpartum.
and the in the pregnancy clients, are you mostly doing preparation type of work?
Yeah, it's preparation. It's trying to help them find that comfortability and find that equilibrium while there's just obviously every person's changing every day, but this is massive change over the course of 9-10 months. So I'm helping them find their strength, find their stability, find their breath. Honestly, that's like kind of the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll do that in a bunch of variety of positions.
Nice.
And just checking in on the pelvic
This,
floor.
yeah,
Yeah.
pelvic floor therapy. If you're going to see any physical therapists across the board, I would say pelvic floor PT is the most valuable because you're going to get to the innermost layers very quickly. Now, love all my, I work with a lot of physical therapists, um, but what you're provided in general physical therapy is just not going to move the needle at all. It's not going to do anything for you. Um, as far as physical therapy practices goes, pelvic floor focuses are fantastic. You're just going to go right to the deep core tissues at least, and not worry about as much. It's not you're not going to hit a shoulder raise. You're not going to hit a little internal external rotation, things like that. You're going to go right to the nitty gritty of things, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
I would do that. I would literally go do sessions. No joke. I would love
I
that.
love that. I love the willingness because it is so true. I mean, you like I again appreciate this perspective, like the forward movement of your spine, like going towards food, going towards
Mm-hmm.
reproduction, right? It
Yeah.
is that forward movement of the spine. I feel like the root, the pelvic floor is it's the basis of it, of course, like physically speaking, right? When we are upright, we are walking, we mostly
Yeah.
move forward.
Yeah. Exactly. You have to have forward intent. That is the primary function through which we're designed. Pelvic floor is going to be involved in every single thing you do, no matter what it is.
Hmm.
And our the reason I feel that um, the pelvic floor, both men and women, become so underactive is mostly because we are not having to pay attention to the quality, efficacy, and efficiency of our movement patterning when we're growing up. So, once upon a time, when we were earlier in human evolution, in any of those stages, if you moved poorly, if you lost symmetry, if you lost your postural power, we'll call it, you would have been killed off, not bred with, or left behind. So once upon a time, it was valuable to be able to do all these things really well. Nowadays, we have created a fictitious value system, and we luckily, tough one right there. We don't have life-threatening reasons to do anything. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we go play a sport as a kid, right, where the goal is score goal or pass ball. It's not do this, otherwise you don't survive. So the quality through which we do it ends up diminishing, and then we build poor patterning, and then we get stronger at those poor patterns as we age. And it leads to, that's why I have a job. That's literally why I have a job.
Yep.
And I had another question about so in your learning so far, have you been able to carry into, or at least inform, some of the treatments that you're already giving? Have you been able to utilize what you're learning in yourself to be able to change that, shift that?
Yes, absolutely. I'd say the essentials. So feeling into the dead bug and the marches and the bridges, squats. I think the biggest change that I've had for myself, that I'm now kind of expressing out loud to my clients and friends and family, anyone who will listen, honestly, is to feel that weight, feel that pressure in the toes more than in the heels. That was such a dogmatic thing in PT school and in yoga, where, we're putting the weight back in the heels to feel the glutes. And sure, yes, I can still do that. But can I activate that in forward weight, forward potential motion, and still feel the power of my glutes, feel the pressure of my toes down, more so on the fourth and fifth ray? Yes. And I feel like, again, not that aesthetics are the prime or primary goal, but I'm already feeling and seeing the shape of my thighs changing and then my glutes activating. I definitely have like a left, more inactive, like kind of grooved butt cheek in comparison to my right. Like my right side is more dominant. And I haven't checked on it recently, but I would bet that it's filled out a little bit.
It should be starting. The physique, the tone of your tissues changes very quickly.
Yeah.
I don't even touch symmetry in function until we start rotating. I don't even talk about it because of what you just mentioned right there. The majority of the reason for that asymmetry in the first place is in the essentials. Once we get the essentials going, now, okay, we've made up most of the ground. Now we can get specific into symmetry. Yeah. And when we go lunge, the next movement you learn is your lunges. That's where we start to talk symmetry. Totally. Where here's a fun, probably dogmatic thing that was learned as well. I come from a bodybuilding background, so training things asymmetrically can't do it. Absolute no, and that was so wrong. We absolutely can train asymmetrically when you have your essentials behind you, because that central axis is what everything ends up orienting to. And when your axes are accessible, you're going to expose real, honest asymmetry. And a lot of times, as people strip back through the layers, you start to realize, oh, wait, my left is actually more accessible now, and my right calf and ankle is less. And you start to be like, oh, wait a second. There's all these connection points, and seeing those connection points, starting to gain ground on building them, you can then take that into more dynamic, more traumatic activities, like, say, running and sprinting. And if we can handle these weak points in the most intense activities, we've covered the majority of what was holding us back. And by doing it in that very chaotic scenario, we're changing it fast.
Yeah,
as opposed to patiently. I'm impatient.
I hear you. I hear you. I am too. I'm so excited to feel more into these lunges and then more of the rotational work. I'm very eager, and I'm so glad I got my homework situated, figure that whole thing figured out, because now I'm gonna like get into it. Um, yeah, I'm really excited to see where this work takes not just my body, but where it takes my mind and my, I guess, just everything. Like I say that my work is holistic. I think you should call your work holistic, like if you don't already, because it is.
I
It
don't have any
will,
word.
yeah,
I let people pick their words
I
for the
know.
most part.
I know.
I'm just after. I'm next step.
I feel like, I mean, you talk about it not necessarily in parts, but you talk about things in layers. And so I really feel that. Like, if people are willing, and this is actually very similar to the reason why I was even drawn to yoga, was like, yoga really pulled me in because of like the physicality. Like, I liked the workout that it was for me at the time. And then what kept me there was this personal development, this spirituality, this just a, an ever shifting sense of self, and then being able to handle that change, the emotionality, the emotional release, just from there, then moving off the mat into the world. It's like moving out of my essentials and out of my recalibrations. I feel recalibrated to do what I'm meant to do in this world.
No better feeling than freedom. That's all I care about for people. Free to be expressive, to let their passion show, because then everybody can benefit from that.
Agreed.
No one benefits from muted people, muted humans. Passion unable to show, inability to express themselves fully, inability to be heard, to be seen. And it's honestly a root cause. That lack of freedom ends up being a root cause of so many things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Drives me crazy. Doesn't have to do that.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you about like any other pet peeves, like the dogmatic pet peeves that you might have as kind of like a silly thing. But I know it like probably really fucking digs at you. But
It's
if you have
no.
one.
People love this because it's fun. It's fun to poke holes in things. Um, well, so I just euphemize it as a unlearning process.
Yeah.
And some of the biggest things that people have to, we'll start from physically, right? There's rules that we've learned in general in our physical posture, for example, that equal good posture.
Mm.
All right. Standing tall, pulling your shoulders back, being proud in the chest. For girls, more recently, especially Instagram era, we have a little dip in the hips, butt sticking out, all these funky angles basically to make your face look toned, trim,
Mm.
high, etc. Um, all of these different cues that we've picked up over the years that are just leading people down a road of completely misguided physical function where you have and I'm so happy to see ladies in the gym working hard, but then when they're watching these simply wrong physical cues and then repeating them, the damage that's being done is that's what hurts. That's what digs at.
Me too.
That's what digs at me. I'm like, yo,
Me
this is
too.
gonna be a short-lived result, my love. Um, so we go to classic gym days. You drive your heels into the ground, squeeze your butt. You brace your abdominals. You pull your shoulders down and back in order to to squeeze, basically squeeze at your back.
Mm.
All of these cues, they are coming from the right place. They're just not being executed very well, and they don't paint the full picture, right? So there's 99% of the physical cues that are out there are not any good. Most of what you'll learn with me is the opposite of what you would have learned. All right, when we take your shoulders down and back, we do not want to ever lock your shoulders in a position, ever. They need to be free to slide and glide. Jamming your weight into your heels to squeeze your butt. We are shortening up your posterior chain. It's the equivalent of wearing high heels 24/7. We're shortening up your calves. We're shortening up your hamstrings. We're shortening up your glutes, which in the short term, that'll look good. But in the long term, it's aging you faster. It's pulling you into this forward head, forward shoulder posture and diminishing your structural integrity that you're going to need to be able to support yourself. And when you can't support yourself, there goes your butt, hamstrings, and calves that you worked so hard for. Not in lunges. This one I see more in guys, I guess. In lunges and squats, we were taught to not let our knees go forward. Mm-hmm. So we want a 90-degree bend in our knee, right? Which that's not going to allow us to have tensile integrity in our lower extremities, feet, calves, shins, quads, hamstrings, groin, pelvic floor, glutes. We're not going to be able to utilize their elastic potential, and we end up using the joint to derive the majority of the power to do an exercise. And this one hits real deep with me because I was really good at those things and those cues. And then when I tried to take my body that was trained to do those things into an athletic arena, guess what my body did? Exactly those things. And none of the athletic potential that I had once had carried over. It actually, my brain and body recognized the sport as something other than what it was. And that basically diminished my love for something that was a huge part of my identity, which was being athletic, playing sports. Mm-hmm. I loved to do it until it started to feel terrible. And I didn't know why it felt terrible. And then it just started to make all sorts of mental, emotional imbalances. And then some other fun dogmas.
Like little pet peeves, maybe even. I will say one of mine is like flat back, like especially when I hear that in yoga as a cue for a halfway lift. Basically being in your hinge.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I know.
I know you know. Your mom's a yoga instructor, right?
Yeah. The flat that comes up when people go to do their dead bugs. That's a big one that's taught in physical therapy, is to flatten the lumbar to the floor.
Same with Pilates. Yeah.
Same with Pilates, exactly. What else do you see a lot? Oh, cervical extension. So in order to protect the lower back in like a deadlift or a squat or something like that, you extend the cervical spine to basically look up. That's another one that comes up quite often. It's infinite. Most of what's out there is I hate calling it wrong, but it's built on old textbooks.
Yeah.
It's built on outdated material. And then we've gotten so deep into economic cycles that are based on this outdated material being true, that it's almost impossible to correct, because that would mean people giving up money, basically. And that's not going to happen. That's not
willingly.
Happen.
No,
not willingly. Exactly. So it's a real big problem, and to be, I don't know if we've ever even spoken about this. What I actually am doing in this world is trying to change these things. I took a physical lens because I knew I would last at it. because
Mhm.
I'm passionate about it. And in that passion, I can be sustainable because I knew my life, a choice, a goal, the size I was taking on wasn't going to be an easy one. And if I was fighting uphill to do it, there was no way I was going to get it done. So, what are some of the other little things?
Like I want to hear like you're working to get it down at the base. I feel like something I've heard you say on podcasts, other podcasts, or was it a personal conversation? I forget. But don't you want to like be working with kids?
Yeah, yeah. The goal is to have elementary schools. The goal is to have elementary schools. Um, I want to be the stuff that I'm teaching today should be things that are ingrained in us initially.
Mm-hmm.
They're not um, anywhere close to any curriculums in the entire world right now. So if we can create, in order to create the largest impact that I possibly can, I know that I have to be teaching children. I know that is the only way that um, we don't have to sit here and have these conversations today
Yeah,
because we
I
should
know.
be out playing pretty much.
The
We should,
way the way I think about this, because it's very similar in my work as well. Um, I feel like I'm reaching the adults, the parents right now, so that I could then help teach their children. And I'm literally in the same boat, parallel. Um, I love teaching young girls and maybe their moms too, if they happen to be in the space, about all the things I like to talk about: periods, pelvic health, all that
yeah,
fun
the
stuff.
important things.
The important things that aren't necessarily dogmatic. They should though be a basic part of our education.
Yeah,
Just as
they're not dogmatic as much as they are pushed out of society and considered taboo to speak
yes.
about openly.
Yes.
That they're it's a damn shame actually because if you could just there's so much to be learned, especially from the female body. Uh, that yeah, I train everybody's, but the female organism is exactly what I model all training off of. It's so much more complex, and learning that taught me handling a male body after nailing down a female body is easy, light work. The complexity of the of female cycles, getting the all those different systems into position and serving the whole female is unbelievably larger it's a bigger task than the males, which is it's just the way the way it's a blessing. Honestly, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the complexity of the female body.
Same.
So there's a priority, in my opinion. Not
Yeah.
that it's not girls better, boys better, girls rule, whatever it is. It's just that um, one is more valuable than the other in the grand scheme of things. One is more, I don't want to say valuable, I guess, has more potential in its complexity and capacity than
Mm-hmm.
the other.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree. I feel like we could for sure dive into a whole other layer of this podcast with the female cycle and how you structure everything. But I feel like that's honestly, like I told you this prior to recording a couple days ago, but people have been asking about your work since I shared about it, that I was going to have you here. And it's like they're just so curious, right? How does this model work? How is it different than everything else? And I'm like, honestly, have have the just the bravery. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to take for someone to like
Yeah,
move into, but um it was for me just like intense curiosity. And so booking that time with you and figuring out, but again, like I was going to say, the magic of what it is that we're all feeling and experiencing, even with the like simplicity or the like basic boredom. Like, even that's interesting to me. Like, how we can find something so basic about our body boring is fascinating. But okay, to kind of keep the line rolling a little bit, it's like just freaking sign up and do the thing. Feel it out for yourself. Because you've spent all of these years, like you said, taking all of these pieces, rejumbling them around and fine tuning them, titrating them down into this really saturated, rich experience that is the all levels group program.
Yeah, that you guys honestly, I just for the record, I was against putting this group program out for my own self-defeating beliefs of people being able to understand the potency to receive the full potency of what I'm trying to teach. And you guys keep proving me wrong, which I'm very happy very happy to report. It's unbelievable how much can be done now with so little of my attention being right there.
Mm.
And that is exactly what I wanted to get to, so that I could then start to peel off my time towards moving closer and closer towards working with kids. So I'm starting to see that separation, which is fantastic. You guys keep turning in unbelievable results, and they're getting faster and faster and deeper and more complete. And the people that you're speaking to that ask, the curiosity comes from a place, from this deep down feeling that I had myself and avoided for a long time of, oh shit, this might be right, which is tough because it feels at first that something else is wrong and someone else's approach is wrong. And I am not ever here to try and prove myself right or wrong. I'm only here to be an unbiased mirror and be honest. That's all I'm concerned about doing. And there's a lot of courage in stepping up and even just having. It's why I have free consultation calls. It's why I do it. I take a ton of my time to just talk to people
Mm.
so that they can put that little feeling at ease, whether they decide to work with me or not. That feeling gets put to ease, and that's what I want out of people. I want for people. I want ease in their lives, freedom in their lives. Yes, I have a very effective method to go there. It doesn't mean it's time for everyone to go there, and that's a huge part of it, is understanding that everyone is on their own journeys and with their own time, and eventually, and I hope that it's not something that makes it so you have to call me. I hope, like Brittney, you can be brave and step up to a framework that's a little bit more complex, tough, evolved, advanced, um, and allow yourself to be honest about where you are and the results that you're receiving, and uh, challenge yourself to that degree.
Me too. And I think I will.
You you happen, yes, you are a fantastic case. That's that's a big testament to the work you're already doing. The getting your essentials down like you did this quickly with minute, basically for you right now, it's practice hours. That's where you're at.
Yeah.
That's great.
I feel like
That's
I'm
fan-
laying that foundational layer and making that nice and thick.
it's fantastic. Yeah, I didn't have any. Do you have any feedback for me? Is there anything that you would like me to speak about, put out there that would help your journey?
That is a great question. Um, Honestly, no.
Good.
Yeah, I think
I
you've done
tried
a
to be
very good
complete.
job. Yeah, you've
I,
done a really good
I
job of being complete.
tried to be complete. I this
Yeah, I know.
It's, I have trouble putting things out there until they're layered over 1,000 times and perfected, which can be good and bad.
Totally. Totally. But I think that's again what I appreciate about you and what you do share, whatever you end up sharing. It's like I know it's been through the ringer and been looked at through all the side views up and down, and it still feels so true. So whatever it is that you are sharing, it that's I think it doesn't matter how much you're putting out there necessarily. It's the quality that you've already done and put together and are continuing to do. If something comes up though, I will let you know. Don't you worry.
Don't you be shy. Very
Okay.
good, Britt. Thank
Yeah.
you so, so much.
Thank you.
This has been a awesome experience getting to know you, watching you work. I'm very excited to um to see how you progress through the thick of the program.
Yeah.
Starting with that lunge gets very real very fast.
Yeah,
It's
like I
very
said.
real very fast.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait to share more of these inner experiences and outer results because that's how, again, people kind of can take it in at first, maybe. I mean, I've already, like I said, did I say this already? I've gotten a lot of, you look great. What are you doing recently? So, I do attribute that to doing your work and that being my foundational layer for what I'm focusing on right now and devoting myself to. And yeah, I feel like, of course, you already mentioned it, but you are doing free consultation. So if any of this really perked up your ears and spoke to you in any way, if you're listening, watching, please just take the time to talk to Conor and go listen to all his other podcasts if you're curious about his background, because they are actually very, very intriguing. I think you've got a fun history. So yeah, thanks again, Conor, for being here.
Absolute pleasure, Britt.
Thanks. We'll talk to you guys next time.